Okay, so let's begin. So welcome everyone. We're actually waiting for a couple more, but we'll begin anyway. So I think thank you so much for being on time. So this is episode 4 of this gamification series on gamification and behavioral design. So today we'll be talking about gamification in marketing, right? So we'll go about some examples, how to approach marketing, and what are the benefits of gamification in marketing, and why is it that a lot of people are actually exploring this, right? So before we begin, some house rules, as Rule has mentioned. Keep your videos on if you're comfortable or if you're, presentable. But most importantly, keep your microphones on mute unless we prompt you to. So there'll be times where you can unmute your microphones to answer questions or ask questions. But for the majority of the session, please mute them just to manage noise levels. Get comfortable. So make sure you're seated somewhere comfortable. You have your snacks, you have coffee, you have your water, whatever you need to survive this session. Feel free to get those. And if you can't join on your computer, ideally, otherwise mobile is fine as well. Reason being is that there'll be some things that you can do throughout the session using your mobile device, but it's okay. Computers are more comfortable, but otherwise it's up to you. And lastly, don't spam the chat unless you have a question or if you are answering a question. Of course, you can also respond or react to certain things that's happening in the session, but keep it to the topic as much as possible, or what's happening in the webinar. All right. I don't want to see someone selling their insurance policies or things like that. It hasn't happened before, but I don't want to see it happen anytime soon. Right. Okay, great. So let me introduce myself. So my name is Sufis. So this is me. If you can see the picture, that's how I look like. So I'm a gamification behavior design consultant. So if you've never heard this role before, it's because it's not very common. In Malaysia, especially, I've not really met anybody who does this or who does it properly, if I may add. I'm also a co-founder of Recruit Consult. So Recruit Consult is a gamification behavior design consultancy that I set up with a partner. So we work with clients all over the world to gamify or to create gamification frameworks for different things. I'm also a certified OCTALYSIS gamification practitioner. So this is basically one of the practices in gamification in industry. And this is probably the most established one in the world. And I am one of 130 plus people who are actually certified. It's quite hard to get certified for various reasons. So I'm fortunate enough to be able to get certified. I've also worked with Fortune 500s, multinationals, you name it. Startups are my favorite form of client because they're very flexible. But of course, I work with everybody, whoever needs the help. I've had the privilege of designing award-winning gamified solutions and frameworks. I don't own them, sadly, because I don't own whatever I built. I built them for clients. So they own it, but I shared that success with them. Affiliated with a couple of associations and also groups. Gamify, Masaga, Play 14, GCOE. I wouldn't dive into this too much because it's just a bunch of acronyms, really. And I'm also a corporate trainer. This kind of happened by accident a couple of years ago, but I've since started delivering workshops, either my own or with the help or to help clients and things like that, right? Okay, so that's me. So now let's go on to the topic at hand. And before we begin, or before I begin, I would like to really understand what you guys want to learn from this session. So are there any particular questions or things that you have in mind when you jump into the session, when you signed up? So if you have anything in mind, please share with us. So what you can do is that I want you to just either scan this QR code with your mobile device, or if you're already on your browser or on your computer, you can just go to slido.com. And you can type in this code 993477, and it'll bring you to this particular page where you can submit your your input. So why this is important is because that way I know what you guys are expecting to learn from this session, and I can kind of focus on that a bit more. So if you have any particular questions or anything that you're facing in terms of challenges or anything you're working on that you want to know more about, specifically, let me know here and I can answer those as we go throughout the webinar, right? Or I can emphasize on certain things a bit more. So we'll wait for a few answers. So again, scan the QR code that's on the screen right now, or just go to slido.com and type in that code at the bottom, 993477, and we'll see your answers appear here. Okay, you'll be anonymous. So if you're shy, you can do that. But if you're really, really lazy, you can just put it in the chat and we'll see it as well, right? At least why I do this is because it's a bit more visual and also it's very anonymous, right? So please put in your expectations or anything that you have in mind. We haven't seen anything so far. Okay, first one, what to consider in gamification in general and for marketing. Interoperability between gamified solutions and traditional engagement solutions. Interesting. Okay, that's a good question. Any more? Let's see. We'll give it another 10 seconds. If you're typing, type faster or just say, you know what, I'm typing. Hold your horses. Okay. We'll wait for a few more. Third one, what to consider gamification, how gamification strategies can come into play with marketing. Okay, so we'll be answering that as well. So that's already in the slides. I think most of this will be covering already in the content for this particular webinar. To understand more about gamification and its correlation with marketing. Okay, fantastic. Any more? Give it 5 seconds. Okay, I think we'll keep it at that. So great. Again, if you do's and don'ts. Okay, if you have any more that you missed out or we missed out in the chat, you can put it in the chat instead. So we'll have a look there instead. So let's move on. Thank you so much for your input. Okay, so let's begin with understanding what gamification is. Just realized that my light isn't on, so I'm not sure you can see clearly. Oh, it's really bright. Okay, there we go. So what is gamification? So let's get the definition out of the way first, because a lot of misconceptions are revolving around what gamification is and what it is not, right? So the basic definition is it's a process of adding games or game-like elements to something to encourage participation. So the keyword here is games or game-like elements, and you want to encourage some form of response or participation, right? It's not just about adding games for the sake of it. It's not about making something look like a game or turning something into a game, right? So all these things have to be present at the same time for it to be considered gamification, right? So let's compare the difference between a game and gamification, right? So a game basically is defined by the player's interaction with the game itself, right? It has its own rules. It's basically its own closed environment, right? And whatever happens in a game stays in a game. It's kind of like Vegas, right? So whatever happens, it doesn't occur or it doesn't affect the real world or outside the game, right? Whereas gamification, it can have its own rules, but it is defined by outward interaction that it encourages. Basically, it's a means to an end, and it's meant to motivate and encourage people to do something outside of the environment. So it could be, for example, to encourage someone to buy something, to visit something, or to do a certain action on a particular platform and environment, which typically is outside of that game environment, right? So that is the main difference between games and gamification, right? Hopefully that's clear. Again, if you have any questions, put it in the chat. Another thing I want to add is that a lot of misconception it revolves around gamification, in that it is about points, badges, and leaderboards. So you'll see a lot of companies where they apply gamification, they'll say, oh, you put a point system to it, right? You do something, you get points. Or you do something or enough of something, you get a badge, and then you also place on the leaderboard. So those are examples of gamification, but they are not the only forms of gamification. It really is about how creative you are and also what you're trying to achieve. Typically, it's all about what business objectives you have in mind, and also what your users are, what they are motivated by. And lastly, what are the things that you can do to motivate them to do certain things, right? So it's always to drive a certain behavior, or we call it desired behavior or action. So what are those actions that you want to drive, and how do you motivate people to do those actions kind of organically using gamification, right? Sometimes points, badges, leaderboards are the way to go, but most cases it's not. So if you see points, badges, leaderboards in any gamified experience, just know that that's not the only way, and it's not always the best way, okay? Right, so let's move on. So why gamification in marketing? What is the significance of doing gamification in marketing specifically, right? So some statistics, right? So this was done in 2018. And it's found that 81% of marketers believe interactive content is more attention grabbing than static counterparts. Basically, your normal, typical marketing, whether it's digital or traditional in the sense of, newspaper magazine, billboards, and things like that. Those are typically static, meaning you don't interact with it. You just look at it and you digest the information and that's it, right? Whereas interactive content, which is typically gamified, it's more attention grabbing, right? And 81% of marketers believe it's more effective as well. 88% of B2B marketers have converted 10 to 30% of their material to interactive or gamification. And 70% of marketers believe interactive content is successful at converting visitors to actually being paying customers, right? And bear in mind, this was before COVID happened, and you can imagine that now that people are more present online, where interactive content is a bit more prevalent, these numbers could be a lot higher today, right? And another one is 79% of marketers, there are two things. One is they agree that interactive content enhances the retention of brand messaging, especially when you combine it with traditional marketing. And they also agree that interactive content can have usable value, resulting in repeat visits and multiple exposure. Because there is a novelty in gamification and interactive content where you can do things over and over again with the same marketing message or medium, right? So you don't have to churn out new and new things every time. The same thing can have the same effect over and over again, right? So we'll see some examples later in this webinar. So you get to see what it means, and you may even be familiar with some of the examples that we show, right? Okay, so what are some clear benefits of gamification in marketing? So obviously, there's a lot of people or marketers using it. Why? The first is engagement, right? This is basically the most important thing, because when you have engagement in marketing, it's basically gold, right? That's basically the currency that you have in marketing nowadays. You want people to engage with the marketing initiative, which then they also engage with the brand, which is a very positive thing. And when you use something like games or gamification, people become very willing to engage with the brand because it's fun, it's interesting, and games have this universal effect of reducing barriers, right? You kind of reduce people's guard against a brand, because now we're littered with marketing messages all over the place, right? You look, even at home, when you're online, you're on your computer, you browse anywhere, you'll see ads all over the place, right? And you've kind of become desensitized, right? You don't even read the messages so much anymore, unless it's something that's appealing or something that you're looking out for specifically, right? But when it comes to something like games or gamification, it will grab your attention, one, and it's also, it will kind of reduce your defenses because it's something welcoming, it's something fun, and you have to drop down your kind of your guard to interact with it, which happens quite automatically, right? And it allows brands to also display messages and their brand in a variety of ways. So while people or users are interacting with the game or the game experience, the companies that use this can also kind of display different messages in the meantime, right? So kind of safe ways to show their brand and to show their products while users are still playing with that particular experience, right? The next thing is conversion. So when they obviously interact with it or engage with the brand through gamification or game design, you get to see conversion rates skyrocket as well. Because they're motivated to do something, and it's always to do something to achieve a reward, right? And you can always tailor that reward to benefit your business. So for example, you can give them discounts, you can give them free shipping, you can give them prizes, they encourage them to visit your website or your store. Depending on what your business is trying to market, you want to tailor the reward to, one, suit your audience, so that's something that appeals to them, and also suit your brand. So you don't just give a reward just for the sake of it. Otherwise, you don't really maximize on the brand engagement or the brand awareness, right? The next thing is brand awareness, as I just mentioned. So when you have people interacting with your brand, the more they interact with it or the more frequent they interact with it, because again, there is a sense of replayability, then their awareness of the brand also increases. And so does their brand loyalty, because they have a positive association with the brand and they become more loyal to the brand. Because when it comes down to when they need to buy or get something or engage a company for their services, if they are already comfortable or familiar with your brand, it's very likely they'll go to your brand first, right? Which is typical, and that's how we are. So if you think about, back when we were younger, we used to watch ads on things that may not be relevant to us back then, say an ad on a laundry detergent. Obviously, when we're so young, we don't really care about it. But when you go to the supermarket today and you're an adult and you need to buy your first brand of laundry detergent, what do? You buy the brand you're familiar with, and you probably remember the brand from back in the day, right? So now you could accelerate that sort of association using gamification in different mediums, right? So again, we'll share some examples so you can get a better idea. So let's move on. So the next benefit is fun, right? So fun is self-explanatory. Games allow people to have fun, and fun is marketable. And when you have fun, you want to share the experience with somebody else, right? Or, look at this ad, it was really fun and interesting. I thought it was very funny. You share with your friends, and that itself increases its reach and its effectiveness in promoting your brand or your products, right? The next bit is replay value. I mentioned this earlier. So gamification has this ability to have replay value. It's not the same as when you see the same ad over and over and again, you'll be more and more interested. It doesn't work that way. In fact, when you see the same ad, maybe the second time, you probably just turn off because like, oh, I've seen it before, But when it comes to something like this, you could play it over and over again, right? In fact, some encourages you to come back because that's where the value lies, to come back so that you get more value in the next experience and so on and so forth, right? So it could be, for example, they're trying to beat their own score or trying to beat other people's score, or they're trying to get better rewards, right? It all depends on what rewards you give and what environment you've created that is gamified. And it all boils down to a couple of things such as your budget and what is available to you. So all these things we'll talk about a bit more after this. The next is positive association, right? So this is kind of all about what branding is meant to do and accomplish. Is you want people to see your brand favorably. Sure, they say any coverage is good coverage, but then again, if you have a negative association with the brand, people will be less likely to interact with your brand or actually engage with your product and services, unless there's no one else in mind, right? So you want to build that positive association along the way. And the thing is, when you have fun and engaging elements in the experience, it begins to build a positive association between the customer or user and the brand, kind of automatically. Because if you like the experience, obviously you'll see the brand favorably, right? It's kind of the same reason why when you walk into a store or an online experience developed by the brand, if it's a very good experience, you will remember it and you want to come back to it, right? The same thing can be done using gamification. If they remember a fun experience or engaging experience, obviously they will come back, right? And that will mean you have long-term loyalty and also increase of sales and also repeat clients along the way. Right. So how do you then gamify your marketing? So you see the benefits, you can see a lot of marketers have been using it. So how do you approach it then? So what are the ways? So there are 4 things you want to keep in mind, right? The first thing is that you want to set your business objectives. Why this is important, it will determine what marketing initiatives you can gamify and how do you measure it, right? So for example, are you trying to increase views? Are you trying to increase sales? Are you trying to increase website hits? Are you trying to increase email signups? So depending on what objectives you're trying to achieve, what you want to consider gamifying will be very different. And this is why when I mentioned those misconceptions about points, budget, leaderboards, this is where it's very important, because you don't want to gamify something just for the sake of gamifying. So as we go through some examples later, just because those examples are within your reach, it doesn't mean they'll be effective in achieving your objectives that you've set out to achieve, right? Because it all boils down to what matters to your business and what is success to you. And it sounds pretty obvious, but in my work, working with different clients, this is something that is always overlooked. And a lot of companies, when they try to practice gamification on their own, this is the first mistake they make, and it's the biggest mistake, because this will basically be the first step they take. And if they don't do this correctly, everything else they do will be wrong and inaccurate. Sure, they will still make something gamified, but it does not bring them the results that they want. In fact, it's just gamification for the sake of gamification. So know what you want to achieve and understand how you can gamify those things to get the results or behaviors that you want to see, right? Especially when it's in line with your marketing strategy. The next thing is you want to know your audience. So this doesn't mean you want to just know the demographic or what's their gender or their race or whatever. That does help to some extent in terms of where they are or where they might be. but really you want to know what motivates your audience, like what are their behaviors, their personalities, because this will tell you what kind of interactions they will respond to, right? What kind of experiences they would like. So for example, if you know your demographic is, say, working professionals, or they are senior working professionals who are maybe 40 years and above, what does that tell you in terms of gamification, or in terms of what interests them, or what games they like, or what kind of activities they enjoy? Not much. Probably this tells you that they probably have a lot of work experience. Does that mean you should do something in line with their work? Probably not, because work doesn't always mean fun, right? So you want to know, like, for example, do they like competitions? Do they like social interactions? Do they like a sense of meaning, or so on and so forth? So I'll share with you something after this. You may have seen this before if you've joined this series in other episodes, but I'll share it again because it's a very kind of recurring framework that I use as well. So but before we go into that, let's go through the rest of this list. The next one is identify the feedback mechanics. So feedback mechanics basically means the touch points to some extent. So where can you interact with them, right? So you want to look at your customer's journey with your brand. So where can they interact with your brand? Is your brand present on social media, for example? Or do you have a website? Or do you have a physical brick and mortar store? Or so on and so forth. So depending on what it is, you want to then look into what feedback mechanics are available. So for example, social media, if you look at, say, Facebook, you have different mechanics such as you can like, you can share, you can comment, you can follow a page, you can create a group, or you can join the group. So these are different mechanics that they can interact with that you can take advantage of. If it's a physical environment, what can you do? You know, they can walk in the store, you can kind of curate that physical experience. Obviously, nowadays it's a bit difficult because of COVID, but assuming that's not a factor, you want to consider what can be done in the physical environment as well. So know your touch points, or what mechanics are available to you based on where your audience engages with your brand, right? It could be a mixture of physical and digital as well. And the last is offer meaningful rewards, right? So when we say rewards, it doesn't always mean monetary. It doesn't always have to cost you anything. It just means it has to be something that your audience cares about. And to know what your audience cares about, you have to know your audience again. And people tend to gravitate towards things like prizes and money because that tends to be universal. And there is a problem with that. One, it's expensive to upkeep. But again, if you're doing a marketing campaign, it may be fine. You have the budget for it. That is great. Another thing is that you tend to attract a certain kind of person when you always rely on monetary or prizes, because not everybody cares about money. Sure, money is great, but not everybody is willing to go out of their way to play a game for money. The same reason why people play games and they don't get paid for it. In fact, they pay to play a game. So you want to kind of understand the difference, right? Sure, there'll be some instances where monetary rewards are great, and they do tend to sway certain people. But at the same time, you want to also understand that your audience may also respond to rewards that are less monetary related. For example, you could give them a reward that's related to your brand, right? It could be exclusive access to something, right? Or it could be you give them the opportunity to be, say, an ambassador for your brand, or they are able to join a group where they can give specific input that will steer the brand in a direction that they prefer. So these are things that you can think about. Of course, you can give them, or you can win, say, an iPhone, or money or discounts and things like that, and those work as well. But it's not always limited to just that. So know your audience, and then you'll know what rewards are meaningful to them, right? Don't just give rewards for the sake of it. I've seen it many, many, many times. And especially if it's something that is a recurring marketing effort, it becomes very difficult to upkeep, because after a while, people will get bored by the rewards, or we've won it already, or we've seen this before, or I can get this by myself, I can afford this. So then they'll be like, then you'll kind of reach 2 points. It's either you have to give them something more expensive, which becomes more expensive for you to upkeep, or you begin to give something else which may be not relevant to them anymore, right? So you know your audience and reward them accordingly. Okay, so this is what I was talking about in terms of when you want to understand your audience, you want to understand what motivates them. So this is called the OCTALYSIS framework. So if you've seen this before, this will be a good refresher for you. If you haven't, it's fine. Then you'll be learning something new. This is something that's very commonly used by gamification practitioners because this is the most complete framework. You'll hear things like self-determination theory or even hierarchy of needs and things like that by Maslow, but this is the most complete. I find, and I've not seen anything more complete in my research. So basically, there are 8 core drives of human motivation, right? So there's epic meaning, which is basically being able to do something, or you believe in doing something greater than yourself, or you're chosen to do something, kind of like you were lucky. The next one is development and accomplishment. Basically, you give them a chance to develop their skills or make progress in something. So they overcome challenges. And people like that sense of competition or challenge. The next one is empowerment, creativity, and feedback. So you give them a way to kind of express their creativity or get some form of feedback that's very interesting to them, right? And the next one is ownership and possession. So allow them to collect things and own something, like kind of like collecting stamps. Excuse me. The next one is social influence. Basically anything involving other people, like mentorship, competition, companionship, anything of the sort is social influence. And this is probably the most commonly used because humans are social creatures. And if you have any social element, you will attract most people to the experience in some way, shape, or form. The next is scarcity and impatience. You want something because you can't have it. So this is where you have exclusive access to things or limited offers or limited amounts of things. If you think about, for example, when you want to buy a flight, we could buy flights whenever they used to be. You can see, there's only this many flights or tickets left, or maybe more prevalently or more recently is, the vaccine. If you try to get the Astra vaccine, you know how limited it was and how difficult it was to get. So that sense of scarcity makes you want it more and more. So you probably spend an hour trying to get the vaccine like some of us did. So if you got it, good job. If you haven't, it's okay. The vaccine will come to you at some point. Unpredictability and curiosity. So basically, you want to know what happens next, whether you're curious or you're afraid of what will happen next. And the last is loss and avoidance. You're afraid of something bad happening, right? Something negative happening. So you do something to avoid it from happening. So these are basically different motivations. And when you think about your audience, because when you look at demographics only, you are not able to understand these 8 core drives and which ones appeal to them. So look at them as people and understand what their personalities may be. And then you kind of look at this again and say, okay, I think based on what their personalities may be like, these are the core drives that will be relevant to them. And when you know what core drives are relevant to them, you know what gamified elements you can use in your marketing strategy, right? Okay, so now you look at what, or more like why people use it and how to kind of approach marketing in gamification marketing. Now let's look at some examples. So I've mixed in some local examples and some examples outside of Malaysia. So you can kind of see the difference and also see some more colorful examples. So the first one is by M&M. So this was actually done back in 2013 and this actually went viral. Nowadays it's a bit more common because they pretty much copied this effort. But back then this was very, very unique. Nobody had done it before. And it was super simple. It was just an image on their Facebook page, M&M's USA, and it went viral, right? So what happens was they've launched a pretzel flavored version of their candy. Obviously, we don't have it here. I don't recall seeing. If you have it, you've had it and you've tried it, let me know if it's good. Yes, Nabila, sorry, I'm just looking at the chat. Yes, it was by Yukai Chow. So Yukai Chow basically created the OCTALYSIS framework which I shared earlier. Yukai Chow is basically the godfather or the guru of gamification in the world. And I got certified by him, in fact, in the OCTALYSIS framework. So yeah, so if you want to look it up, you can Google Yukai Chow or the OCTALYSIS framework. You can learn more about what he's about and also about the gamification framework that he's created. Right, so moving on. So this is basically an I Spy game. So if you can see, I don't know if your screen, you can see on your screen, but you'll see there's a pretzel hiding amongst the M&Ms. And it's such a simple mechanic. It's such a simple thing. But this created a lot of buzz for the brand, because it was something different back then for social media. You didn't have much of this. And basically challenged their followers and consumers to find this tiny pretzel guy hiding among the M&Ms. And it went viral, right? And back then viral was 25,000 likes, 6,000 shares, 10,000 comments. Obviously today's viral is different, Back then, this was viral already, right? I don't know if you're looking for the pretzel. If you are and you see it, great. Okay. So this is one example. The next one, this is very recent. I'm not sure if you heard of this brand. It's called Joy Design Studios. They're basically a Malaysian furniture retailer and supplier. So I wanted to show you an example that's very easy to do, that you can use with existing Instagram features and things like that. So they use their Instagram stories to basically increase product knowledge and product awareness among their followers, right? And even though I've been familiar with the brand for so long, I did not know about these products until I saw their Insta stories. And they also threw in questions about who are their sales team, because they have different branches in Klang Valley. So you want to know the difference. Oh, where's their Bangsa sales team, their PJ sales team, Shah Alam, and things like that. And it's such a simple thing, right? So now just with this, you can look at their product. So it's kind of like marketing their product. So if you like the design, you can find out more. And you also find out the name. And obviously they use very weird names, so you can't really guess very easily. And when you click on it, what happens, they also get data, right? So they know how much interaction they got, how many views they got. And this is really simple ways to get data, engagement, and also to market their products, right? Super simple to do, probably took them like 5 minutes to do this or even less. And the engagement they got was very valuable, right? And just like that, you'll know the product. And if you like the product enough, you'll buy it, right? And they didn't have to hard sell you anything. The next one is by Lazada. Okay, so Lazada, they do a lot of gamification. And I will admit their gamification isn't always the best. But they are using gamification a lot. And this is why I also practice behavioral design, because gamification by itself isn't always effective, because you want to know how to use it and how it should look. Right. In this case, Lazada doesn't do behavioral design very well, because I'm not sure if you've even seen this before, right? You may be an avid user of Lazada, but you may have never seen this game before. In fact, this is not the only game they have. So what happens is that you can grow strawberries. I don't know why, but you can grow strawberries. And I don't know why this little creature can grow strawberries for you. I guess because it's cute. Again, there's no correlation with the brand, but it's there. You grow strawberries, and then you can convert strawberries to coins. And with these coins, you can convert them again to something else, like a discount and things like that. So it is a form of gamification. It is a mini game. It is not the best example, but it's one of the few local examples that I could find. And why I wanted to point this out is because even though this was something done, so I just got a message from Patience. Browsing to collect coins seems more effective compared to the farm. Yes, you're right. Okay, so you can collect coins on Lazada in different ways. You can browse, they actually have missions you can accomplish. And it's either you are aware of it or you're not. And I actually did a bit of a survey before this, and I found that most people don't even know about it and they don't really care about it. And that's because to get the coins is quite a lot of effort, and you have to get a lot of coins to get not very good discounts or rewards. So this is basically, we don't talk about this in this particular series, this particular episode, but if you've joined past episodes, you remember I shared about something called, it's a behavioral model by BJ Fogg, where you want to match the effort with the incentive, right? So basically, if you have to do a lot to get very little, it may not be worth your while, right? If it's very difficult to get a particular reward, you may not be interested to waste or you might not want to waste your time to do it. So in this case, Lazada makes it really, really, really difficult for you to get simple rewards, right? And because they make these rewards or this discount so accessible, because they have their discounts pretty much every month now, right? They have their 6/6 sale again. Last month they had their 5/5 sale. Basically, they're finding any reason to have discounts or to basically sell things at a discount, right? And because it's so easy to get those discounts, all these gamified efforts are kind of meaningless, right? Unless they give you more rewards than usual, but they don't. They give you pretty much the same thing or pretty lackluster rewards. But it is a mini game. It is a form of gamification, and it is a gamification in marketing. So that's why I put it here. But this is kind of a not so great example. So if anybody here is from Lazada, I'm very sorry, but it is what it is, in my professional opinion. You have to grow 500 strawberries for 5 coins. And if you want to redeem a reward, you have to get, I think, like 300 coins or something like that. So if you see, the math doesn't really add up very well. If I had to change this, I would basically either make the game really, really fun. In this case, the game is, all you have to do is just go on the strawberry farm thing and just water the strawberry. That's it. You know, it's not much. So it encourages you to log in often. And bear in mind, you don't even know where this is, right? It's not really easy to find this page. You have to go to your profile and go to games and then click this particular game. Then you can do this activity. So it's not very obvious. And Lazada's interaction or the interface is kind of messy already because there's so many things going on. You probably missed this entirely. So if you have seen this before and you're a Lazada user, just put it in the chat. If you're a Lazada user and you have not seen it before, also let me know in the chat, because I really want to see how many people actually is aware this exists, right? Again, it's not only the only game they have, right? They have other games. Okay, so Patience is aware, so great. I actually know a lot of people who don't know this exists, right? So this is one other example. So if, again, how would I change this is to either make it really fun or make it really easy. So that means they put in the effort and they get really good rewards, and the rewards they get are only available if you play this game, not through other means. Right now, you can get the same rewards here when you can just wait for, say, the 6.6 sale or 12.12 sale or whatever sale, right? So they'll always have sales. So you just have to be a bit more patient and you'll get it. You only encountered this game if you made a purchase, yeah. If you're lucky, you'll encounter it. Otherwise, you won't look for it, right? Yeah, so that's the kind of the downfall in the way Lazada has approached this, and among other Gamify elements they've kind of incorporated in their platform. Okay, so let's move on. Another one is loyalty programs. So loyalty programs are actually a form of gamification. Sure, they don't call it gamification. It's because loyalty programs have existed so long that it's been around even before gamification was a thing, or it was termed as gamification. So I won't talk about the history of gamification so much, but it is by definition a form of gamification. So this is one example. I'm not sure if this is also done in Malaysia, but this is basically done outside of Malaysia. It's a Starbucks rewards program, my Starbucks rewards program. I'm not a Starbucks user, so I don't know this very well. So what happens is that the more you buy Starbucks products, whether it's drinks, you get incentives like free food, free drinks, and you receive points or stars with each purchase, right? So again, it's a loyalty program. And you can use these stars as a currency to redeem specific items or prizes. And there are also unique rewards like free birthday beverage or free refills. And the more you earn, the more rewards you get. In fact, if you earn enough, you can reach a gold status and you can reap the best rewards. So Grab does this as well with their Grab points and their rewards. So the more you earn, the more benefits you get, right? So again, I'm mixing in local, outside, or international examples just to have some variety. But yes, Grab is also another good example. So Grab does gamification well in their loyalty program fairly well, because there's a lot of benefits that you can redeem with not too much effort. It is quite practical, right? And if you use Grab products like Grab Pay and things like that, you get even more points than usual, right? Which is a very good way of maximizing the elements or the gamified elements in their platform. The next one is competitions and contests, right? So this one can come in different shapes. You can compete with each other directly, or you can have a way to win something through chance. So this is by a brand called Clips, which is a headphone brand. So this is actually from Malaysia. This is a Malaysian local example. So basically, they want to collect your emails, right? So instead of just saying, let me just give you your emails, they instead give you a chance to join this competition to get either a discount, or if you're lucky enough, you can win a premium pair of headphones, right? So submit your email and you get a chance to spin the wheel. And if you're lucky enough, you can either win a prize or a discount on your next purchase. So this is a great and simple mechanic, because one, you have nothing to lose by giving your email, right? Yeah, you get maybe promotional ads or newsletters and things like that, which is not the worst thing. Because your email is your email. You are used to giving up your email for certain benefits and things like that. But in this case, now you get something in return. You get a discount or even a chance to win something, right? It's pretty much free, right? And the good thing is for the company, they get to collect at the very least, they collect emails, right? If that's their main objective, they will win already, because that is the first thing that the user has to do. Or the next thing is that they get to award discounts, and the discounts are not that significant, maybe $30, but it is something, right? And that could spur someone to buy their product. So if you're in the market for a new set of headphones, and if you so happen to get a discount through this game, you'll be more inclined to buy from them, because I'll get a discount if I buy here, so why not? So then they also get a sale, right? So this could be another objective they're trying to achieve. So this is another example. And this is the last example we have. This is Nike Plus. So if you're a Nike user, this may be something relevant to you, or if you're a runner and you use Nike, this could be something that is something you're already familiar with. So Nike Plus, they have evolved over the decade, right? So before this, they were attached to their particular products. They had specific, like, I think smart bands and things like that. But nowadays, with smartphones and smart devices and kind of smart watches and things like that, you can track all your actions very easily. So now Nike Run is more of an app. So it allows you to personalize your training program. And also you can compete with other users by completing challenges, earning trophies and badges. So you can compare what's your standing against other people. So if you look back at the OCTALYSIS framework that I shared earlier, we talked about things such as accomplishment, right? Which was the second core drive. So this ties well to that. So you can basically compete with yourself to do, maybe you beat your personal best, or you run more, or you exercise more, or things like that. So you have a sense of progression. Or you can compete with other people, because they also have things like leaderboards, or you can also see how everyone else is doing compared to you. So for example, you can see how far you ran compared to someone else, or how much calories you burn, or how much time you spend on a particular activity. So all these things paints a clear picture in your head as to where you stand in terms of, say, your community, or even your friends, right? And this could motivate you to do more. So in this case, it's to build positive association with the brand. Obviously, the more familiar and more comfortable you are with Nike, the more likely you go back to the brand to buy more of their products, right? So this is the last example I'm sharing. So you can see that there are very different ways to approach gamification and marketing. There's something very approachable in terms of, you could use social media, which is pretty much free already, right? You could post something on your feed, or you can post an Insta story, or you can create something elaborate like email marketing ad, or you can create a mini game, which is a bit more expensive to do. If you have the budget and you know how to do it, you can do it and you can get pretty good results. Or you could do something like Nike, where they created an actual app to complement their products and to also benefit the users, because they don't sell the app. The app is free. And you pretty much can use it for free, but it benefits their users, and it builds that positive brand association. So depending on your objectives, depending on your budget, and what feedback mechanics or touch points you have available to you, you can create different interactions or experiences for your user to interact with your brand, right? So the sky's the limit. It depends on what you want to do. If you see that your touch points are limited, you can create new ones, like kind of like what Nike did with their app and things like that. So think about what's relevant to your business, what's relevant to your marketing strategy, and you can even see what's available in your marketing strategy already. So if you have a lot of traditional methods already being used or already added to your marketing strategy, what can you add in terms of gamification to complement those particular initiatives, right? So really think about it, and you'll be surprised as to what you can accomplish. Right, so let's cap it off with this quote. So Mary Smith is a Facebook advertising professional, and she's also a webinar speaker. Basically, she's a personality in the marketing industry. So content is king, but engagement is queen. And the lady rules the house. So really, engagement is everything, especially nowadays. People don't really respond to static ads as much because we're so desensitized by it. You go outside, you'll see an ad, and I can guarantee you, you will probably not remember those ads as much anymore because they're everywhere. So you need to go the extra mile to engage and interact with your audience and user base, because that's the only way they'll really remember your brand and build that positive association. Otherwise, you're just noise, right? Okay, so we're at the last section, which is the Q&A, right? So if you have any questions related to gamification, marketing, or anything of the sort, feel free to ask. So you can do it in a few ways. One is you can just go to this. So scan in the QR code and go to the same slido.com and put in this code, and you can put in your questions there. Or you can just unmute your microphone and just voice out your question and I can answer it there. Or you can just put it in the chat, right? You can either put it in the chat and let everyone see it, or if you're shy, you can just send it to me. So it's up to you. I give you guys the freedom to choose, but please ask your questions so that I can answer them. So we have a few more minutes. So we have quite a bit of time to go over some questions. So if any questions, please feel free to ask. Okay. I will be waiting patiently for your questions. So any questions, please go ahead. If you're thinking of them, please think hard and I'd be happy to answer your questions. Again, it could be anything related to gamification or marketing or both. Or if you have any other questions, yeah, go for it. Maybe we'll answer them anyway. So, okay, got our first question. Would you say it's not advisable to create gamification if it's not rewarding to the customer? Okay. I would say it depends on whether you know how to create. So I wouldn't say that there's no benefit. Gamification definitely has a way to benefit pretty much any environment. You'd be surprised. I've had to gamify a lot of different things, and it all resulted in very positive outcomes. But it really depends on whether you know how to do it. If you're not comfortable and you're not sure how to go about it, you can try really simple ways. Like some examples I shared with you were very simple, like using Insta stories or Facebook. It's very easy. And the worst thing that can happen is that they don't interact with it as much. And you can kind of do A/B testing and see what works and what doesn't. But if you're really not comfortable and you're really afraid, yeah, don't do it. It's fine. There are other ways. You can try different marketing strategies that you're more comfortable with. But really, gamification or at least interactive forms of marketing is still more effective. So you want to give it a shot, take small steps, or if you want, you can engage an expert and they can advise you as well. Since the pandemic, there's so much marketing being deployed, mostly noise. Has there been any trends when it comes to effective marketing during these times? Okay, the trend is basically gamification. Again, it's not obvious, but it is there. It's because gamification, if you do it right, it doesn't look like gamification. It just looks like something else. And that is the beauty of gamification. It's kind of very subtle. It's kind of very hidden and not obvious. And it is the trend nowadays, right? I've personally seen it. And despite the pandemic slowing things down for a lot of businesses, I've personally seen a lot of increase in demand for gamification. And it's very clear that gamification is very variable nowadays. Right? So that is the trend today, right? How to integrate gamification, education-based marketing, okay? Particularly within the video medium, will it create diversion of attention and dilute the purpose? Okay, this one you need to kind of look into a bit more. Education-based marketing. So then you can use gamification to increase awareness or educate people on your brand or certain things. In fact, this is probably very commonly done as well, using gamification. You might want to look up some examples. You can just Google gamification in marketing or in education and things like that. I have seen some examples online. Or if you have some time, you can also speak to me and I'll share with you some examples or kind of some approaches to do this. Will it create diversion of attention and dilute the purpose? It really depends on how you do it, right? The how is more important than the what, because you could do something really well, or you could want to do something really well, but the execution would be quite poor and you will not have the intended outcome. So execution is key. So really trying to understand what you're trying to achieve and what is the best way or the simplest way to get to that point, right? Sometimes less is more. Okay. Okay, we're getting quite a lot of questions. Let me answer the latest question at the bottom. Through an app, how should one improve if the initial impression was poor to increase willingness in engagement? Okay. This one is a bit difficult to answer because it really depends on how your app is designed. So I have audited and helped a lot of companies fix their app. Fix is kind of loosely used term to kind of increase engagement. So this is more on behavioral design rather than just engagement. Gamification. The simplest way to answer this is that in behavioral design, you want to make sure that whatever you want them to do or the desired action you want them to take is very obvious on that particular experience. So basically, when they go to your app, it's very clear as to what you want them to do. It's like maybe the buttons are obvious, the page is very clean. The less clutter you have, the better the engagement and results you get. So because when it's very overwhelming, you will turn people off. And when people get turned off, they will either leave the experience or they will just not do what you want them to do, right? Typically, it will lead to bounce rates of people just leaving the experience, right? So make it very easy and comfortable. If you feel confused or you feel uncomfortable using the experience, then you might want to change things. It seems that gamification takes a lot of infrastructure planning for it to be done right. Are there ways on how to do a pilot without high investment? There are. So you might want to try out more low-tech ways to do this. In fact, nowadays it's a lot easier because there's a lot of free alternatives out there, especially online, to try things out. You might want to do some research and see what other people do as well. Try small things and just see if it bites, right? Now, social media is very easy. You can kind of use social media as a way to test a lot of different approaches because there's a lot of elements already. Like you can get people to like stuff, comment, share. Those are very simple elements that are already somewhat gamified. So you can take advantage of that to try things, right? And those are free. And if it works, then you can dive deeper and kind of put in more investment financially into it. Are there any specific online tools you recommend for gamification? Oh, it really depends on what you want to do. There's a lot of gamified solutions out there. Some are pretty good, some are not so great. It really depends on what you're trying to do. I can recommend some, but it really depends on what you're trying to achieve, right? Through an app, should one? Okay, I think we've seen this. In your opinion, is there a company you think that uses gamification very well in terms of gaining engagement? There are. The best example I've seen is by Duolingo. So Duolingo is a language learning app, and they've actually evolved their gamification over the years, right? And it's always getting better and better. And I think that's the most solid and most complete approach to gamification that I've seen so far, and they're still constantly improving it. So if you want to really experience gamification, a really good gamified experience, you can use Duolingo. It's free to download. You can also learn a new language, and you'll be quite surprised by how effective it is, right? I tried it out, and I was quite surprised by how easy it was to learn because they really make it very easy to learn really difficult languages, right? If you want a bad example, you can use Lazada. Sorry, Lazada. I'm actually a Lazada customer. I use Lazada a lot, but I really don't like the gamification. How would you do gamification marketing if your target audience is on LinkedIn? Okay, so LinkedIn algorithm is kind of not so great because I don't understand why. I use LinkedIn a lot, and the algorithm and the way they do things is pretty weird. Because they basically only like it if you write posts. You basically, whatever content, pictures, videos has to be uploaded on LinkedIn for it to get views. If you put a link on your post, you can see views plummet just like that. If you even link another LinkedIn link, it still doesn't work. I don't know why. So you want to work within those limitations a little bit. The good thing is LinkedIn, you can still have likes, comments, or reactions and things like that. So you can kind of put in certain videos or certain pictures that they can interact with. I've seen pretty good examples where, for example, you can take a book from M&M's, like how they did with the pretzel, right? That's a very simple thing. But you must remember your audience. LinkedIn's audience is more professional, so they are less tolerant of things that are very, very Facebook-like. So as long as it's relevant to your brand or relevant to a business, you're okay. Otherwise, you might get some comments that, this is for Facebook and things like that. So tread carefully, but yes, you can use gamification on LinkedIn, but you have to know what works best for the algorithm because LinkedIn's algorithm is a bit of a pain. And also what your audience will like, right? And your audience may be different from mine and so on and so forth. So you want to know what they respond to. Are there any more questions? I'm just checking the chat now. Okay, I see one question. We work mostly with corporate clients, and I have a question: gamification for employee engagement, not so much for marketing. Can I get in touch? Yes, get in touch. I'll be happy to chat. I'll share my contact information after this. So you can just, drop me an email, or you can find me on LinkedIn, since we're talking about LinkedIn. I'm very active on LinkedIn. In fact, I meet a lot of my partners and clients on LinkedIn, surprisingly, or they find me for some reason. Can you share some ideas on how to use gamification in email? Sometimes having a new app or platform can create another layer of barrier. Okay, the thing about email is that there's not much interaction available, right? Because it is a one-way street typically, unless you put a link for them to go somewhere else from the email. Because an email, you just read it, you open it, and that's it. Unless you're creative enough to think of some other way, maybe they respond to the email, but usually they don't respond to emails, newsletters especially. But again, the best way is probably to link them somewhere else. So you want them to kind of like, go here to do this particular activity. Or another interesting way is that you can use an email to kind of distribute information that's specific to a particular gamified activity or interaction. So basically for them to get, say, maybe clues or information for them to win something or to do something, it can only be done through email. So that could be a good way. So instead of interacting through the email, they collect the emails, right? So it increases the relevance of opening the emails because, maybe it's a clue today, or maybe it's something interesting that's useful, or maybe there's a hint or whatever. You could kind of use that approach instead. Because again, emails, this is why you want to know what feedback mechanics are available to you. And if email is one, you have to know the limitations of email as well. So you make that work for you instead. Okay, another question. We're getting a lot of questions this time around. Those just starting users, are there any learning lessons to avoid or steer clear of from your experience on this topic that you can share with us? Yes. Look at Lazada. I'm sorry. I'm really upset by how poorly they do gamification. Yeah, I could approach them for my services, but it's okay. I maybe one day. Because I've had some experience working in Lazada before, so I know they can be quite difficult. So sorry about if you're from Lazada, I'm very sorry. But yes, if you want to learn from it to avoid or steer clear of, don't just do points, badges, and leaderboards. All right, don't throw rewards that are monetary based or expensive just because. Make sure that you know your audience. Make sure you know what works. So you can try small ones. Start small, and if you see something that bites, maximize on that and try new things again and again and again. Eventually, you'll find a pattern and you can maximize on that, right? And I noticed that a lot of companies, when they use gamification, they try small things that are very free or cost effective, and whatever works, they maximize on that a lot. And because social media is such a strong presence nowadays, you can pretty much get away with just using social media. It's free. Your audience is probably already there. In fact, you're probably engaging with your audience there predominantly. So why not focus on social media first? Right? If you have the means and the budget, you can also do something else that's a bit more expensive, like building something on your website or building a whole microsite or building an app and so on and so forth, right? So start small, avoid the cliche gamification approaches, which is point badge leaderboards, and also really understand your audience. Yeah. How much you study theory principles on play? I would think it's important to know so we can apply. I studied this a lot. So because I also do workshops on gamification. So I also train people and I also do a lot of speaking engagements. I recently spoke at a conference and things like that. So I do a lot of research to back up what I do. And also because I also consult companies, so I have to really know my stuff. I've looked into, I always read psychology books as well. So a lot of things that go behind behavioral design and gamification is psychology, behavioral psychology and behavioral economics. So I try my best to use what's most prevalent in the market and what's most effective. So I've tried a lot of different things. So yes, I try my best to do a lot of research. So I'm just answering a question that I got on the chat. Okay, did I miss any more questions? We're getting a lot of questions today. I don't think so. Okay, sorry, I just got a direct message. I can't say it out loud, but okay, thank you so much. All right, great. So if there's any more questions, please feel free to ask. I'll be here. So I'm gonna end this slide. Okay, so what's next, right? So if you like what you saw today and you want to, stick around for future episodes, so we have 1 episode per month, and we have at least 2 more episodes in store for you guys. And so you can scan this QR code, and what will happen is that you can subscribe to it. I will subscribe you to a newsletter, and I will send you basically updates when we have the next episode. Or if you have any questions in particular, you can also reach out through this channel. So yeah, scan this QR code or just type in the URL over here, and I will get in touch with you if you like. So I'll give that a few seconds. So if you guys want to get in touch, you have any questions, just scan the QR code and then you'll get all my secrets. Or you can just you can screenshot the page, the screen, and then you'll get my phone number, my email, and things like that. Or if you want to find out more about my company, you can go to recruitconsult.com. And of course, you want to find out about Common Ground, you can go to Common Ground's website, which Ruel will tell you about, I'm sure, after this. So thank you so much, guys. If you guys want to stick around and ask more questions, feel free. I'll wait around for a couple of minutes. Otherwise, you're free to go.